On the 16th of November 2010, inside Clarence House, London, a camera briefly caught the light, breaking through a sapphire the colour of deep water, 12 carats of Ceylon blue, circled by 14 diamonds, cold against Catherine Middleton's newly engaged hand. The Royal Collection Trust, in its inventory of pieces held under Queen Elizabeth II's personal holdings, not the crown jewels, lists the Cambridge lover's not tiara among objects that could be worn, withheld, or loaned at the sovereign's discretion. That morning, Kate's neck was bare. Her wrists were bare. The ring had come from a velvet pouch belonging to Diana, Princess of Wales, selected by Diana from the Garrard catalogue in 1981, and carried in William's keeping ever since. The tiaras, the necklaces, the jewelled suites assembled across generations, all waited in cases she had not yet been invited to open. The ring was permission, everything else was negotiation. In mid-October 2010, at a private retreat near Lake Rutundu in Kenya, Prince William produced a small velvet pouch and placed its contents in Catherine Middleton's hand. What she received was not merely a ring. It was a 12-carat oval Ceylon sapphire, deep blue and without inclusions, set in 18-carat white gold, and surrounded by a constellation of 14 round diamonds. Diana, Princess of Wales, had selected it herself from the Garrard catalogue in 1981, one of a curated selection of engagement rings available to her at the jeweller's showroom. As royal biographers later noted, the selection was made without the custom commission usually expected of a future queen. At the time, it seemed almost ordinary. At £28,000, it was, by royal standards, modest. Diana wore it on every important occasion for nearly 16 years. After her death in August 1997, the ring passed into Prince Harry's keeping for a period, and then into William's. No formal royal inventory recorded the precise moment of its transfer. Only private memory governed its custody. When William chose to give it to Catherine, the gesture carried a weight far beyond sentiment. He was extending an inheritance not just of gemstones, but of identity. "It was my way of making sure my mother didn't miss out on today," William told reporters at Clarence House the morning of the announcement. The sapphire, cool and solid on Catherine's finger, was the first royal jewel she would call her own. The ring came freely. The tiaras did not. Royal convention governing the wearing of tiaras is older than most of the jewels themselves. The protocol, refined under Queen Mary in the early 20th century, established a clear and durable hierarchy. Crown jewels belonged to the nation, personal pieces belonged to the sovereign, and pieces loaned to other members of the royal family were exactly that: loans, not gifts. Wives of heirs apparent did not own tiaras, they were permitted to wear them. This distinction was administered not through formal law but through long-established custom and proximity to the monarch. Records from the Lord Chamberlain's office in the mid-20th century document the process by which state jewellery was issued for specific occasions and returned to its vault afterward. A piece fastened at a palace for a state banquet on a Tuesday would travel back in its case by Wednesday morning. The loan was the event. The return was the rule. The gatekeeper of this system in the final decades of Queen Elizabeth II's reign was Angela Kelly, the Queen's personal dresser and confidant since 1994. Kelly, whose role she herself described in her published memoir, The Other Side of the Coin, coordinated the selection and physical transfer of jewellery for the Queen, and, to varying degrees, for other members of the family. She was not a courtier in the formal sense, but her influence over which pieces appeared on which women at which occasions was considerable and widely acknowledged. Protocol, as one close observer of the period noted, had a way of presenting itself as tradition. Catherine Middleton, as the fiancée and then wife of the heir apparent, would receive access incrementally, not by entitlement, but by approval. On the 29th of April 2011, Catherine Middleton entered Westminster Abbey as a bride and emerged as a royal wife. The tiara resting against her hair was the Cartier Halo Scroll Tiara, a bandeau-style piece set with 739 brilliant cut diamonds and 149 baton diamonds in platinum, constructed by Cartier London in 1936. King George VI had commissioned it for his wife Queen Elizabeth, later remembered as the Queen Mother. In 1944, on Princess Elizabeth's 18th birthday, it was given to her as a personal gift, a jewel passing from mother to daughter before it entered the wider archive of the royal collection. By the time Catherine wore it, the tiara had been absent from public appearances for some years. The choice communicated something deliberate. Grander, options existed within reach. The girls of Great Britain and Ireland. Tiara, a layered kokoshnik design of diamonds assembled at the turn of the 20th century, had been worn regularly by Queen Elizabeth II in her decades as sovereign. It would later come to Catherine on loan, but not on her wedding morning. The halo tiara was smaller in architectural scale, more intimate in its line. It did not announce its presence, it framed. Cartier's own archival records confirm the piece spent decades in private royal keeping, absent from state occasions and formal portraiture. Selecting it for the most photographed morning in modern British royal history was either an act of quiet deference to the Queen's taste or a deliberate signal of measured entry into the institution. Perhaps both. The choice signaled deference, one palace observer said afterward. The Queen noticed, "The Cambridge lover's knot tiara has no quiet history." Commissioned by Queen Mary in 1914 and executed by the Jewellers Garrard and Company, it was based on a 19th century piece from the Cambridge family collection, a design of 19 diamond-set arches, each suspending a hanging pearl drop, the whole construction assembled in diamonds against white gold. The weight of it was substantial. The 19 pearl drops swayed with movement. Diana, Princess of Wales, wore it more than any other tiara during her years as Princess of Wales, and she was candid about its discomfort. According to those close to her, she reportedly called it her headache tiara, a phrase repeated across biographies and consistent with photographic evidence showing the visible tension the piece placed on its wearer. When Diana returned the tiara to the Queen following the formal breakdown of her marriage, it went back into the royal collection around the time of the 1996 divorce. For nearly 2 decades, it did not appear publicly. It simply waited behind glass while a new generation of royal women grew into their roles around it. Catherine first wore it on the 8th of December 2015 at the diplomatic reception at Buckingham Palace, 4 years after her wedding, 3 years after the birth of her first child. The occasion was formal, the setting imposing, and the resonance undeniable. She had been a working member of the royal family for half a decade without wearing it. The gap was not accidental. Under the loan system confirmed by decades of documented appearances, access to significant pieces came not from title but from demonstrated readiness and, above all, from permission. 4 years of marriage before the most visible symbolic inheritance. Silence, in the language of royal jewellery, has its own grammar. Every piece that Catherine wore to a state occasion in the early years of her marriage arrived by arrangement and departed the same way. The loan system governing Queen Elizabeth II's personal collection operated, as Angela Kelly later described in her memoir, through careful coordination between the Queen's household and attending family members. A jewel was selected, fitted if necessary, worn for the duration of the event, and returned. The velvet case travelled with it. The case left with it. Certain pieces were simply not available. The Delhi Durbar Paro, a suite of emerald and diamond jewellery assembled for King George V's 1911 Durbar in India, including a necklace, tiara, and earrings, was reserved for senior royal women at the most formal state occasions. Catherine did not wear emeralds from that suite in the early years of her marriage. Queen Mary's fringe tiara, worn by Princess Elizabeth at her own wedding in November 1947, was treated as a piece reserved for royal brides or the sovereign herself. Documentation of Catherine's public appearances cross-referenced with Royal Collection Trust listings confirms neither piece appeared in her formal wardrobe before she became Princess of Wales. The girls of Great Britain and Ireland, Tiara came to her on loan beginning in 2014, appearing first at a state visit reception, a significant expansion of access, given that Queen Elizabeth II had worn it throughout her own reign. Its arrival in Catherine's hands was quietly noted by those observing the gradual recalibration of the royal jewellery wardrobe. Every sparkle had a signature line on a lending form. The beauty was entirely real, so was the administration beneath it. Among the pieces Diana received as Princess of Wales was a parure of sapphire and diamond jewellery gifted to her by the Saudi royal family in 1981, a suite that included a necklace, bracelet, ring, and pendant drop earrings. The earrings, set with oval sapphires surrounded by diamonds, were worn by Diana on formal occasions throughout her marriage, and were among the most extensively photographed of her personal jewels. When Catherine began wearing them publicly, she did so in altered form. The original sapphire drops had been reset as stud earrings. Modification confirmed in reporting by court correspondents and cross-referenced with photographic records comparing Diana's and Catherine's appearances. Later, Catherine had them restored closer to their original drop configuration, re-adding the diamond pendant element. The alteration and partial restoration were both documented, though the precise timing and reasoning were never officially confirmed by the palace. Some royal observers interpreted the initial modification as practical. Drop earrings work differently when worn under formal tiaras or in less ceremonial settings, and the reset may have been purely functional. Others read it differently, as Catherine's quiet instinct to step clear of Diana's precise silhouette, to inherit the gemstones without inheriting the ghost attached to them. The jeweller who performed the work has never been publicly named. The sapphires themselves, ocean blue and perfectly matched in tone to the engagement ring, became part of the visual, thread linking Catherine's public image to Diana's, whether by design or by the persistent logic of inheritance. Reshaping the setting changed the form. The stones and their history remained entirely unchanged. In October 2015, during the state visit of Chinese President Xi Jinping to the United Kingdom, Catherine attended a state banquet at Buckingham Palace wearing the lotus flower tiara, a piece also known by the name papyrus tiara. Originally belonging to the Queen Mother, the tiara's lotus flower design dates to the early 1920s, its exact maker unconfirmed in accessible records. Princess Margaret had worn it on documented occasions as well. By the time it appeared on Catherine's head at the 2015 state banquet, the tiara had not been photographed publicly for many years. The decision to wear it for a head of state reception of the highest diplomatic significance was understood by royal observers as entirely intentional. Tiara selection for formal state occasions is not improvised. Angela Kelly's documented role in coordinating these choices was by then a matter of public record. The lotus flower tiara, historic, elegant, deeply restrained in its decorative vocabulary, communicated seniority without overshadowing. It spoke, in the quiet visual grammar of royal adornment, of a woman who had earned a place at the most formal table. She wore what she had been given, and the giving was itself a statement, issued not in words but in diamonds and the precise accumulated weight of history resting on a woman's brow. The state visit was photographed from every angle. The tiara appeared in every frame. Its provenance, connecting it to the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret, placed Catherine in a lineage of royal women, not by blood but by loan. Between 2020 and 2021, as the world contracted and state occasions reduced to screens and garden ceremonies observed at a distance, the tiaras disappeared. They were not missed, because the events requiring them had largely vanished. What remained in their place were pearl earrings, modest gold pieces, simple studs, jewellery designed for a proximity rather than spectacle, for a camera positioned 3 feet away rather than the length of a state banquet hall. Catherine appeared in video calls wearing plain necklaces. She appeared at community visits and school doorways wearing only rings. This was not entirely incidental. Royal jewellery communicates hierarchy, and hierarchy has historically communicated distance. In the period of the pandemic's greatest severity, distance was the message no one wished to project. The decision to wear understated pieces was consistent across the royal family, but read with particular clarity on Catherine, who had carefully built her visual identity around restraint rather than display. Royal observers and fashion historians documented that Catherine's access to the Queen's personal collection had expanded noticeably after 2018, a period coinciding with the gradual transfer of increasing ceremonial duties to the younger generation. More loans, wider options, a wardrobe beginning to reflect a more senior position. But the pandemic stripped away the grandeur before the new access could fully unfold in public view. What remained was something quieter. A woman photographed in a coat and pearl studs, standing in a schoolyard in the early light. The jewels were waiting in their cases. The woman was still present. In June 2022, during the national celebrations of Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee, Catherine appeared at Buckingham Palace balcony gatherings, Thanksgiving services, and official receptions wearing borrowed pieces from the royal collection, pieces loaned precisely as they had always been loaned, returned precisely as they had always been returned. The system, unchanged through 7 decades, held. 3 months later, on the 8th of September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died at Balmoral Castle. The monarchy passed to King Charles III, and with it came a redistribution of jewellery on a scale not observed since the previous accession in 1952. The Queen's personal collection, distinct from the crown jewels and held in her private capacity, was governed by her will, the contents of which remained sealed under the Royal Wills Act. Private bequests were made. Their effects could only be read from the outside through observation. Camilla, now Queen Consort, received a significant portion of key pieces, including several that had been central to Queen Elizabeth II's ceremonial wardrobe. This was both expected and consistent with precedent. The Queen Consort holds a specific position in the formal hierarchy of royal jewellery access, one that supersedes the Princess of Wales in current protocol. Catherine held the most senior title in the next generation. She did not hold the highest title in the present one. A new reign, as one chronicler of royal dress quietly observed, the same locked cases. On the 6th of May 2023 at Westminster Abbey, Camilla was crowned Queen Consort wearing Queen Mary's crown, remodelled for the occasion from platinum into yellow gold, a deliberate statement of continuity and of hierarchy. The crown itself, originally made in 1911, incorporates diamonds from the Cullinan stone, including the Cullinan 3 and 4. Its appearance on Camilla's head was the most visible single demonstration of what the new reign meant for the arrangement of royal jewellery access. Catherine, Princess of Wales, attended the coronation wearing a commissioned headpiece, a floral construction created in collaboration between designer Jess Collett and Alexander McQueen, whose fashion house had clothed her at her own wedding 12 years before. It was beautiful and precise and modern. It was not a historic tiara from the royal collection. No archival piece rested on her head that morning. The contrast required no commentary to be understood. 2 women, 2 roles, 2 entirely different relationships to the vault. The Princess of Wales occupies proximity to the throne through lineage and eventual succession. The Queen Consort occupies it through present rank. These are not the same proximity, and the jewellery of coronation morning made that distinction visible without a word being spoken. Some observers read Catherine's headpiece as an intentional modernising gesture, fitting for a future queen who might reshape royal visual culture. Others saw in it the same lesson quietly repeated since November 2010, that closeness to the crown is not the same as access to the crown. The cases were still governed by rank, not by forecast. From January through the summer of 2024, Catherine, Princess of Wales, withdrew from public life. An announcement in March of that year confirmed what had already been observed through her extended absence. She had been diagnosed with cancer following abdominal surgery in January and was undergoing preventive chemotherapy. The treatment was her private matter. The absence was a public fact. During this period, there were no tiaras, no state appearances, no photographs from palace balconies or state banquet halls. The jewellery, which had functioned throughout her public life as a precise language of occasion and rank, fell silent because the speaker was not present. The lending forms went unsigned. The cases stayed closed. The clasp had no neck to fasten to. When Catherine returned to public appearances in the second half of 2024, she wore modest jewellery. Small earrings, personal pieces, nothing requiring ceremony or announcement. The sapphire ring was there as it had always been. The familiar blue stone, unchanged since Diana chose it from a catalogue in 1981, sat on her hand through everything the preceding years had brought. Illness has a clarifying quality in the performance of public life. The ceremony falls away, and what remains is the person inside it. For the months of Catherine's absence, her jewellery said nothing because she was not present to wear it. The velvet cases waited in the dark, behind glass, behind vault doors, exactly as they had always waited. The clasp, fastened for a wedding morning in April 2011, rested without purpose in 2024. It simply waited for the occasion to return. The question of what Catherine will wear as Queen Consort is not idle speculation. It is a matter governed by living precedent, documented inheritance patterns, and the unresolved question of which pieces from Diana's legacy remain formally within the household of the Prince of Wales. The Koh-i-Noor diamond, set in the Crown Consort's crown and subject to long-standing debate over its colonial provenance, belongs to the Crown Jewels and becomes available to a Queen Consort by constitutional right. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, wore it at the 1937 coronation. Whether its history makes it a jewel to be worn or one to be quietly set aside is a question that has not been publicly resolved, and it is not one Catherine would resolve alone. Some historians believe a future Princess of Wales would embrace the continuity of tradition. Others argue the piece's origins make a different choice inevitable. Both interpretations have been set down in print. Neither has been confirmed. The pieces from Diana's personal collection that passed to William, including elements of the Saudi sapphire suite, items from the Spencer family collection, and select pieces gifted rather than loaned by the royal household, remain within the prince's household. Some Catherine wears regularly. Others have not been photographed on any member of the family in the years since Diana's death. What the future holds for the vault is formally unknown. Whether Catherine will inherit the existing architecture of loan and return, or whether she will reshape access from within when she holds the highest title, history does not yet record. The Cambridge lover's knot tiara, when not on loan, rests behind glass at Buckingham Palace. 19 pearl drops hang in their diamond arches, unmoving. The museum lighting is designed to replicate the shimmer of a state occasion, cool and precise, and suspended outside time. Conservators in white gloves have handled it. Velvet has cushioned it through decades. No clasp has been fastened on it since its last appearance, whenever that was. The velvet form inside the case still holds its curved shape. The sapphire ring, by contrast, is on a living hand. It has been photographed in schoolyards and on palace balconies, in grief and celebration, in the unfocused background of informal family photographs taken in a garden at Balmoral. It was not designed for permanence or institution. It was chosen by one woman for love and passed to another as legacy. It is, of all the jewels in this story, the only one that left a vault and never returned to it. What was withheld across more than a decade of public life, the tiaras issued and reclaimed, the parures reserved for higher ranks, the emerald suite kept behind protocol rather than glass, reveals as much about the institution as what was worn. Every empty velvet form in a jewel case is the precise shape of an occasion not yet authorized. Every clasp unfastened on the same evening it was fastened is a sentence completed, a permission issued, and then quietly revoked until the next event required it. The form is ready. The tiara has not yet been assigned.